primarily in that article. But look at this one, USA Today. Pope Benedict XVI today called for the reforming of the United Nations and establishing a true world political authority with real teeth to manage the global economy with what? God-centered ethics. Is that not religion? What is he talking about, brethren? Church and state in a global entity. In his third encyclical, a major teaching released at the G8 summit begins in Italy. The Pope says such an authority is urgently needed to end the current world financial crisis. It should revive damaged economies, reach toward disarmament, food security and peace, protect the environment, and regulate migration. The encyclical also echoes Benedict's many speeches saying that to reach sound the global economy, every responsibility and commitment must be rooted in the values of what? Do you see what's going on here? This is call for a union of church and state by the same power that Daniel chapter 2 speaks of as the first merging of the iron and the clay. That which hath been, brethren, is now. And that which is to be hath already been. God requires of you to know this information. Without that, he says, there is no social conscience and responsibility. Neither, he says, are mere good sentiments enough. Human progress requires God, and today's choices concern nothing less than the destiny of man. Now, BBC News.
Mondays used to be a very different day to the rest of the week. One day we could all...
Can I get a little volume on this?
Friends and family, we could go to church.
Can you turn this one up a little bit for me?
Mondays used to be a very different day to the rest of the week. One day we could all relax, we could see friends and family, we could go to church. It's all changed. Should the Sabbath be a day of rest? I mean, Christina, we've gone beyond the point of return on this, haven't we? I mean, you know, here you are, you've got a deadline for tomorrow, you've got to write an article, you've got to appear on a wonderful television program on a Sunday morning. It's not the way we live now, is it?
No, but wouldn't it be nice if the government sent us a message that they didn't think of us only as units of consumption and production and worker bees. Yeah. Just once in a week, we were let off the hook, and we could not shop, and we could not work, and actually concentrate on the other, on the whole self.
On each other.
And on each other. Why not?
Now, did you listen closely to what they said? He starts off saying Sunday, then he calls Sunday the Sabbath. Then after that, they begin to take the Sabbath and to break it down into a secular concept. He said, you know, wouldn't it be nice that we have one day of the week that we can concentrate on self and our family, the community? Brethren, what they are doing, BBC News now, this is an international news source. What they are trying to do is to secularize the concept of the Sabbath so that secular individuals will be inclined to adopt a day of rest. You're going to watch this happen again. Pay attention. CNN.
So Judith, you know, it's kind of the perfect weekend to talk about an Easter weekend, and you know, we just had Passover, right? So let's talk to me about the Sabbath, what it means to you, just religion aside, what it means to you.
The Sabbath is two things to me. One, it's this incredible idea. It's really one of the great ideas in human history. It's transformed the world. It's affected the way we've lived for thousands of years. And I was interested in thinking about it, studying it, learning its history before it kind of disappeared from our lives. So that was the big idea that I had about the Sabbath. And then what it meant to me personally was it was a way to get outside of the work-a-day, driven, careerist life that I was leading.
You know, it's interesting because you talk about, you know, Christians, any religion, people have these moments where they feel like they're searching for something, right? And then it can be even harder now, as you say, you know, we're connected. I'm showing my BlackBerry and my iPhone, and you're always connected. And sometimes, do you think it's always about religion, or is it just about connecting to source, connecting to family, pulling back and not being so involved in the rat race?
Don, that is exactly the point. That's exactly the point of what I discovered about the Sabbath, which is that it is a really good idea for people, for families, for communities to set aside a structured time in which to connect with each other. And that is at the heart what the Sabbath does.
You said, this is a quote from you, you said it's a collective time illness. What does that mean?
Collective time sickness, actually. I say we're driven by time rather than driving it ourselves, and it's making us sick. The idea of the Sabbath is not just that all people have the right not to work, which, by the way, was a radical and new idea when it was first conceived and written down in the Fourth Commandment. It's not only that. It's that all people have the right to work, not to work, at the same time, so that they can be together. And one of the things that's happening to us is that we're getting on these very different schedules, and we're having a very hard time figuring out how to come together. And what the Sabbath does is it creates this situation in which there's just a structured period in which we can come together.
So is this the first step? And maybe that is the answer to my next question. Is going to say, what's the first step if someone's watching and they say, you know what, I need to do that?
Basically, the first step is to do it yourself. You bring it into your life and try to get your family to do it with you. But one of the things I argue in the book is one of the ideas, the political ideas sort of embedded in the Sabbath, is the idea that as a society we have the right to take control of our time and say maybe as a democratic society we want to decide to bring back some rules about what can and cannot be done one day a week. And we might want to start thinking about ways to encourage people not to work on that day.
Ah, very good advice. The book is called The Sabbath World, and her name is Judith Shulevitz. Good to see you.
Thank you, Don.
Did you pay attention to that? He starts off, religion aside. And then she goes on to, once again, secularizing the concept of the Sabbath. Not only secularizing it, but she says there's a political concept embedded in the Sabbath. There's nothing political about the Sabbath. And then speaking of the United States of America, she said as a democratic nation, we should think about coming together and deciding what we can and cannot do. Making some rules about what we can or cannot do on one day of the week. She's talking about establishing a Sunday law. And if you've noticed thus far, each one of the news interviewers have been very favorable to these positions on the Sabbath day. Have you noticed that? What type of effect do you think that has on the minds of those that are viewing the news program? Last one.
Thing again, because we don't Sabbath much anymore.
So I think we should, but I don't think we have to do it in churches and synagogues, though I think if you want to do it in churches and synagogues, that's a great thing. But I think the Sabbath has all these lessons. The history of the Sabbath, which I tell some of in the book, has all these lessons for us, for teaching us how to organize our time so that it's possible for us to all get together at the same time and be together and form communities and civic associations and neighborhoods and all that stuff.
So, but what does it mean? Like, if we all are we all going to make up our own minds about what the Sabbath means? Isn't the idea of the Sabbath and building this community is that there has to be a overarching idea of what the Sabbath is? Because if you Sabbath your Sabbath and I Sabbath my Sabbath, we're never going to co-Sabbath.
Yeah, but we can co-Sabbath at the same time. We can Sabbath at the same time. I say make it at the same time.
You Sabbath on Saturday and I Sabbath on Sunday, and never the twain shall meet.
So this is one of the weird things in the book. I am Jewish, but I say I think we should probably go back to protecting Sunday, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. Let's stop. Now let's stop. This is a Jewish lady, and she said, I think we should go back to protecting Sunday. Brethren, you don't know how serious this is? You don't know how serious this is. You know, if I had even more time, I would share with you our man by the name of Senator Joe Lieberman, very influential senator in the United States of America. Just near the close of last year, he wrote a book on the Sabbath day. Happens to be a Jewish man as well. In his news interview on the Sabbath day, he also associated the fact, he also spoke and said how Sunday could be acknowledged as the Sabbath as well. This man comes from an Orthodox Jewish background. And then he was asked by the interviewer, how important do you believe that Sabbath is to the destiny of man? Do you remember hearing anything about destiny of man from me this evening? Remember what the Pope said about Christian values being a part of this true world political authority because nothing less than the destiny of man is at stake? Well, the interviewer asked him, how important do you believe that the Sabbath is to the destiny of man and even the destiny of America? And then he went on to say, you know, you use my favorite word in the English vernacular, destiny. And he went on with his rhetoric, as politicians do, and then he came down to the crux of the matter. He says, I believe that in keeping and promoting the Sabbath, we are working in connection with God to fulfill the destiny of humanity. And this man has had his name on some of the most crucial bills that have been recently passed in our country. Bills that are getting ready to bring to pass the word spoken in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 11. Brothers and sisters, we are on the precipice of the passage of a national Sunday law in the United States of America, which will then sweep like the Black Plague across our planet. The question is, are you going to be prepared? Are you going to be prepared? The Bible tells us in Revelation 17 and verse 14 that when the nations of the world make war with the Lamb shall overcome them, because he is King of kings and Lord of lords. And those that are with him are the called and the chosen and the faithful. And the only reason that they can be with the Lamb is because they, number one, follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Are you following the Lamb where he is right now? He's in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary. What is he doing? He's interceding for you. Why? So that you can be cleansed from all of your sins. Why? So that you can be an overcomer. Why? So that when he overcomes the world, you won't be cast down with it. You allowing the blood of the Lamb to cleanse you. Will you be amongst the called and the chosen and the faithful? This is the decision that we need to make right now this evening. You can't put this thing off till tomorrow. Brethren, there are things that I would love to share with you that some of you might pass out in your chairs. I'm telling you the truth. You might pass out in your chair. This is serious. This is not a joking matter. Because a slaughter is getting ready to hit the church. And the majority of us are going to fall. But before we fall, we're going to betray one another, hate one another, and deliver one another up to be persecuted. So the next person that's making a joke next to you, rest assured, they might be the one that turns you in. No, brother, you think I'm not playing? And every time I stand here in front of these places and I know people saying, oh, God, the ForeRunner, thank you. I say, you know, this might be the brother that turns me in. Because this is the reality of the matter. I still love you. I'm praying for you.